How was your day? Not the official version, the real one. Maybe someone tested you today, quietly, and you passed, but it cost you. That's where tonight begins. With a boy named Paul and a book called Dune. You can close your eyes now. I'll keep reading. Nothing here needs you awake. Some days ask everything and give nothing back. Tonight, you don't owe anyone a thing. Every week, one great book, no homework, just the story and somewhere quiet to land. Paul is 15, the son of a duke, and he hasn't slept well in weeks. His home is Caladan. Green hills, gray sea, rain on stone. He loves it, but his family is leaving Caladan. They've been given a desert planet, Arrakis. A gift, the Emperor called it. Paul's father knows better. A gift can be a trap. Here's the question I keep coming back to. What if you were made for something you never chose? Paul's mother is Bene Gesserit, a sisterhood that trains minds the way others train armies. She taught Paul things she wasn't supposed to, ways of seeing, ways of waiting. And lately Paul has dreams, the same desert, a girl with blue eyes he's never met. He doesn't know yet that the dreams are real. That's the part most people miss. We'll stay with this one tonight. More worlds, more books on other nights. If you drift off, it'll wait. The night before they leave, a visitor comes to Caladan, an old woman in black. She is Bene Gesserit too, and she has come to test the boy, not with words. She tells Paul to put his hand inside the box. He doesn't want to. He does it anyway. Then she holds a needle to his neck. The Gom Jabbar, move the hand, she says, and you die. The box fills his hand with pain, burning, then worse. His whole arm feels like it's gone. An animal in a trap gnaws off its own leg, she says. A human stays, a human waits. So Paul stays. He keeps his hand in the burning box. He does not move. And then it stops. The pain was never real. The box only made him believe it. The old woman studies him a long moment. You passed, she says. Most boys do not. She and Jessica speak quietly afterward. There's an old hope hidden in their order, a long plan. They've spent centuries breeding for someone, a mind that could be in two places at once. Paul doesn't know any of that yet. He only knows his hand still aches with a pain that was never there. That's the strange thing about being tested. Sometimes you pass and still feel like you lost something. In the morning, the ships are waiting. Caladan is behind them now. Ahead, only sand. Arrakis hits you first as heat, the kind that presses on your chest before you've even stepped down. They tell Paul something here that he can't forget. On Arrakis, water is worth more than gold. The people of the desert are called the Fremen. They wear suits that drink their own sweat. One of them spits on the floor in front of Paul's father. The Atreides flinch. The Fremen don't. It wasn't an insult out here. Giving up your own water is the highest respect there is. Paul watches all of it. He's learning a rule he'll need later. Out here, nothing is wasted. There's a man named Gurney Halleck, scarred, gruff, and he plays a small stringed instrument when he's happy. Gurney taught Paul to fight. He's hard on him because the galaxy will be harder. And there's Duncan Idaho, younger, easier, the one Paul most wants to be like. Duncan has been living among the Fremen, learning their ways. He comes back changed, quieter, impressed. There are more of them out in the sand than anyone guessed, he says. Tough, disciplined, free. Paul's father sees it at once. If he can win the Fremen, he can hold this planet. But the planet has a guardian no army can fight. The worms, Shai-Hulud, the Fremen call them. They can swallow a spice harvester whole, and the spice is the only reason anyone comes here at all. The spice is called melange. It bends time for those who pilot the great ships between stars. Breathe enough of it and your eyes turn blue, the whole white gone, blue within blue. Paul takes his first spice on Arrakis without knowing it. It's in the food, in the very air. And the spice does something to Paul that it does to no one else. It sharpens his dreams. He starts to see moments before they happen, just glimpses, enough to frighten a boy his age. If you drift off here, that's fine. The desert keeps its own time, and the story waits in the sand. Paul's father trusts 3 men above all others: Gurney for the sword, Duncan for the heart, and Thufir for the mind. Thufir Hawat is a mentat, a human trained to think like a machine since machines were long ago forbidden. Hawat is sure of one thing: somewhere inside this household there is a traitor. He just can't find them. He suspects the wrong person. He suspects Jessica, and that mistake will cost the Atreides dearly, because the real enemy is patient. The Harkonnens held this planet for 80 years before the Atreides came. The man who ruled it is the Baron, enormous, floating, cruel in a way that smiles. The Baron didn't lose Arrakis. He gave it away on purpose so he could take it back with blood. He hates the Atreides for being everything he has not loved: honorable, followed without fear, and he has help no duke could match. The Emperor himself wants the Atreides gone. They've grown too admired. So the trap is set on 2 sides, and Paul's father walks into it knowing there was no safe road here. Before the danger comes, there's one more quiet day. Paul flies out with his father to see a spice harvest. Far below, a great crawler scoops spice from the sand, and the watchers see what's coming for it. A worm is coming. The men on the crawler have minutes. The carriers race to lift them off the sand. Paul's father does something the Baron never would. He throws away the spice to save the men. Then the worm takes the machine. The sand opens like a mouth and swallows it whole. Paul watches the worm and feels no fear, only something like recognition, as if he'd dreamed it already. On the flight home, the spice they breathed presses on Paul hard. The visions come in a flood. He sees a green banner. He sees war fought in his name across the stars, and he is afraid of it. That's the thing about Paul. The future doesn't comfort him. It shows him a flood he can't stop. His mother sees the change in him. He's becoming something she helped make, and it frightens her too. Meanwhile, Hawat finds the planet's old reports. They hint at a secret. The Fremen are far more than nomads. There may be millions of them hidden in the deep desert, an army no one has ever counted. If the Atreides could befriend them, they'd be unstoppable. The Baron knows this, so he moves first. The household feels it coming. Doors are watched, voices drop. Paul sleeps in his clothes now, just in case. And one night, with no warning at all, the lights of Arrakis go dark. The trap closes. The shields fail first. Someone has shut them down from inside. Hawat was right. There was a traitor. It was the doctor, the family's own physician. They'd held his wife and broken him with hope of saving her. Harkonnen troops pour through the dark halls. The Atreides fight, but the doors were already open. Duncan Idaho fights to the last to buy the others time. The room goes very quiet after that. Gurney is cut off from the family, swept out into the desert with the survivors. He doesn't know if Paul lives. Paul's father is taken alive. The Baron wants to gloat before he finishes it. That's his weakness and his pleasure. Even captured, Leto isn't finished. He's hidden one last weapon for this exact moment, a poison tooth. He doesn't escape, but he takes some of his enemies with him into the dark. It's all he has left to give. The Baron survives by a breath. His float harness yanks him clear. He laughs, shaken, and calls it a fine try. Paul and his mother, meanwhile, have been bundled into a flyer and carried out over the open sand, to be left there, to die quietly. But the men who took them made a mistake. They left Jessica her voice, and her voice is a weapon. The Bene Gesserit can pitch a command so deep it bypasses the will. They call it the voice. In moments, the guards are undone by their own hands. Paul and Jessica are free, alone, and very far from anywhere. They have a desert survival kit, 2 still suits, a small tent, and no idea how to last a single day out here. Paul puts on the still suit by feel, fitting it the way the Fremen do. He'd watched once. His hands remember. His mother watches, amazed. He's doing it perfectly, as though some deeper memory is teaching him from inside. They walk through the night toward the rock, away from the soft sand where the worms hunt by sound. They move in a broken rhythm, no steady beat. A worm follows rhythm, so they walk like the desert itself. They reach the rock just before dawn. They are alive. The Duke is not, and neither of them has had time to grieve.
If you drift off here, that's fine. They're safe for now. resting in the rock, and the story keeps going on its own.
Inside the little tent in the cool dark, Paul finally lets himself feel it. His father is gone. The grief doesn't come out as weeping, it comes out as the visions, stronger than ever, opening like a door. He sees now who he could become, not just a duke's son, a figure the desert people will follow into fire. And he sees the cost, a holy war spreading from this planet, killing in his name across the galaxy. That's the cruel heart of Paul's gift. He can see the river ahead, he just can't find a way around it. His mother learned something else in that tent. The Bene Gesserit didn't only send Paul here, they prepared this planet. Long ago, her order seeded myths among the Fremen, stories of a mother and son who would come to save them. So when the Fremen meet Paul and Jessica, they won't see refugees, they'll see prophecy walking out of the sand. It troubles Paul, a myth you didn't earn is still a kind of lie, but it might be the only thing that keeps them alive. That night, the second night, they hear it, a great whisper rush rising from the sand, a worm drawn by their tense hum. They run for the rock, scrambling up bare stone as the dune behind them swells and breaks open. The worm takes the empty tent and the sand around it and then sinks back. The night goes still again. Paul watches the worm leave and understands something no outsider has dared think. That thing could be ridden. At first light, exhausted and waterless, they start walking again. And this time, they are not alone. A band of Fremen has been tracking them since the rock. Silent, sure-footed, blue-eyed, their leader is named Stilgar. The Fremen are deciding whether these two outsiders are worth their water or worth killing for it. Jessica moves first. With one trained throw and a few words, she shows them she is dangerous and unafraid. Stilgar is impressed, despite himself. These two are not soft off-worlders. They could be useful. They could even be the prophecy. And among the band is a girl, small, fierce, with the bluest eyes Paul has ever seen. He knows her face. It's her. The girl from his dreams dreamed long before he ever set foot on this sand, and now she's real. For Paul, it's dizzying. The future he's been dreaming is starting to arrive, piece by piece, exactly as foreseen. Stilgar makes his choice. He will take them to his home in the rock, to the hidden sea edge. But there's a condition. They must cross the open sand to reach it, and the only way to cross the deep desert is to call a worm and ride. Not yet, though. First, they have a long march to the rock's edge, and Paul has much to learn before the sand will carry him. Stilgar teaches him the walk, no rhythm. The worm hears rhythm, so you move like the wind moves the sand, unevenly, alive. Paul takes to it fast. Too fast, almost. Stilgar watches the boy learn in hours what takes Fremen children years. The whispers start among the band that night. The prophecy, the one the off-world witches promised. Maybe it's true, maybe it's him. Paul hears it, and he feels the danger of it. Once a people decides you're their prophecy, you stop being a person to them. But there's no road back. Caladan is gone. His father is gone. The desert is all there is now, and the desert wants a messiah. Tomorrow they cross the deep sand. Tomorrow Paul must do the thing he's only dreamed. Tomorrow he calls the Maker. To cross the deep desert, Paul must call a worm and ride its back. The Fremen do it the way you'd hail a boat. They set a thumper beating in the sand. The rhythm calls the worm the way a heartbeat calls a predator. Then they wait. The worm comes fast, and the Fremen do the unthinkable. They run toward it, hooks in hand, and leap onto its moving back. The hooks pry open a ring of its armored skin. The worm rolls that tender part up away from the sand and turns where they steer. This first time, Paul only watches. He clings on behind Stilgar and feels the desert itself moving beneath his feet. They ride for hours across sand no flyer could safely cross and reach the great rock where the Fremen truly live. Sietch Tabor. Inside, Paul finds a hidden world. Warm caverns lit with soft globes, gardens, water stored against the day Arrakis turns green. The Fremen have a secret dream, hidden pools, plant by plant. They're slowly turning their desert into a living world. It will take centuries. Most of them will never see it. They tend the dream anyway for grandchildren they'll never meet. Paul and Jessica are taken in, but not yet trusted. To stay, they must earn their place in Fremen law. And law here is hard. Jessica is asked to become their reverend mother. Their old one is dying, and someone must take the sacred memory she carries. There's a danger no one mentions aloud. Jessica is pregnant, and the ritual will pour ancient memory into the unborn child too. She takes the ritual anyway. There's no other way to stay alive among these people, and something in her daughter wakes too early. Jessica survives. The CH now has its reverend mother, and Paul, watching, sees how deep his mother's strength really runs. As for Paul, the girl from his dreams becomes his teacher. Chani shows him the desert's 1,000 small secrets of staying alive. And slowly, the way it happens in a hard life lived side by side, the dream girl and the dreaming boy fall in love. Fremen give Paul 2 names, one private, one public. Usul for the friend they trust, and Muad'Dib for the legend they need. Muad'Dib is the little desert mouse that survives where nothing should. The Fremen love it. The boy has become a symbol now. Time passes this way, months, then years. Paul grows lean and hard and sure. The boy from Caladan is almost gone. But the past finds him. One day the Fremen capture raiders in the rocks, and one scarred prisoner has a voice Paul knows. It's Gurney, alive. He survived the fall of the house and has been raiding the Harkonnens ever since, never knowing Paul lived. The two of them hold each other in the rock, and for a moment the years and the grief just fall away. He found his boy. Gurney kneels and pledges his sword again to the son as he once served the father. The old loyalty, unbroken by all that sand and time. For Paul, it's a wound reopened and healed at once. Here's a piece of his father's world, returned to him whole in the desert. This is why we read these old books at night, for the part where the lost thing comes back, and someone is finally found. With Gurney at his side, Paul's small band becomes something larger. Word of Muad'Dib spreads from CH to CH across the sand. They begin to strike the Harkonnen spice operations, quick raids out of the deep desert, then gone before the dust settles. The Baron can't understand it. His spice harvests keep failing. His patrols vanish. The desert itself seems to be fighting back. He sends his nephew Feyd-Rautha and his armies, but you can't grip sand. The Fremen melt away and strike again somewhere else. A whisper goes around the off-world soldiers. There's a ghost in the desert. They call him Muad'Dib, and he does not lose. But Paul knows he isn't fully Fremen yet. There's one thing every Fremen man has done that he has not. He has never ridden a worm alone. Until he calls a maker himself and rides it, the Fremen will follow the legend but never fully follow the man. Today he changes that. He plants the thumper himself. He sets it beating. Then he walks out alone onto the open sand to wait for a mountain to come for him. The sand begins to stream far off. A ripple turns and races toward the rhythm. The maker is coming, and it is enormous. This is the moment that decides everything. If his timing is wrong by a breath, the maker takes him. If it's right, he becomes a rider. As the great body surges past, Paul runs alongside it, matches its speed, and throws his hooks. They bite. He climbs. He's on its back. He pries open a ring of skin, just as he was taught, and the worm rolls that tender part skyward to keep it from the sand. Now it must run where he steers. Paul rides. The desert blurs beneath him at impossible speed. Behind him on the rocks, the Fremen are roaring his name. When he brings the worm back and slides down to the rock, he is no longer the off-world boy. He is Muad'Dib, rider of the Maker. Stilgar embraces him as an equal now. The teacher and the student stand level, and the whole desert has just gained a war leader. Now Paul can do what no one before him dared imagine. He can move whole armies across the deep desert on the backs of the Makers. The Harkonnens have walls and machines. Paul has the desert and its monsters, and he has learned to ride them like cavalry. But Paul carries a private dread. None of them can see. Every vision still shows the same end. His war will not stay on this one planet. He sees the green banners spilling out to the stars, billions following his name into a holy war he never wanted, and he can't find the path that avoids it. This is what makes Paul different from every hero you've met. He isn't marching toward glory, he's being carried toward something he fears. Chani sees the shadow on him. She doesn't ask him to explain. She just stays close. the way you do with someone carrying something heavy. Around them, the movement keeps growing. More Sietches send fighters. The legend feeds itself now, with or without Paul's blessing. The Baron, far off in his dark halls, finally grasps the size of what's rising against him, and for the first time he is afraid of a planet. And far above them all, the Emperor himself begins to take an interest in this desert that keeps swallowing his prophets. He decides to come in person. The Emperor brings his own terrifying soldiers, the Sardaukar, trained on a prison planet so cruel that survival itself makes them deadly. No army in the galaxy has beaten the Sardaukar in open battle for centuries. The Emperor brings them to crush the desert ghost once and for all. The Sardaukar have never fought the Fremen. They've never faced people raised on a world that tries to kill them every single day. Paul sees the gathered enemies on Arrakis and feels the river of his life narrowing toward one rapids. Everyone he hates is in one place now. He knows there is one more thing he must do before the battle, a thing the Fremen fear, a thing that has killed every man who tried it. To see the one path through the coming war, Paul must drink a poison that no man has ever survived, and tomorrow he means to try. The Fremen have a sacred poison. They call it the water of life. It's drawn from a drowned worm, and it can change a person or kill them. A reverend mother can transform the poison inside her body, making it safe and holy. But no man has ever survived the attempt. The men who drink it die. Paul believes he is the one the Bene Gesserit bred for, a mind that can do what no reverend mother can. He means to drink it and live. Chani begs him not to. Stilgar warns him. Even his mother is afraid, but Paul has seen in his visions that there is no other way through. He drinks. And for a long, terrible moment, nothing moves. Then his body goes rigid and cold, and he falls as if all his life has gone out at once. He doesn't wake. Hours pass, then days. His body breathes so faintly that they cannot find his heartbeat. Everyone but his mother believes he is dead, but Paul is not dead. He is deeper inside himself than any human has ever gone, transforming the poison the way no man before him could, and then it happens. The thing the Bene Gesserit waited centuries for. Paul's mind opens onto all of it at once, past, future, every branching road of what might be. He sees his father's death and his own birth. He sees the bottom of time. He becomes the one they named in prophecy, the Kwisatz Haderach. It is not joy to see all paths is to see every grief in advance. Paul comes back from that place older in a way that has nothing to do with years. Chani has been spooning a little water of life between his lips for days, refusing to let him go. It's her hand that finally calls him back. His eyes open. He knows her face before he sees it. He's seen this exact moment 100 times in dreams, and still it moves him to be here. He tells them what he is now. He can see the one narrow path through the war ahead, and it runs straight at the Emperor and the Baron both. There's a weapon in his vision he'll use. The great desert storms that scour Arrakis. He'll attack under the cover of a storm so fierce it eats machines. For a moment, though, before the war, there is only this. Paul alive, Chani beside him, his mother near. The people he loves all in one warm room. He came to this planet a frightened boy with a dead father and no home. He's found in the worst place in the galaxy a family that would die for him. Take a breath here. The hard part is past for Paul, and the harder part hasn't started yet. Just this once, let him rest in the quiet he earned. His mother watches him sleep and thinks of Kaladin. Of the man she loved, gone now. Of the boy she raised into something even she can't fully follow. There's a grief in winning that no one warns you about. Paul will get everything his enemies took from him, and it will not bring his father back. The greatest books don't promise you a clean victory. They just sit with you in the truth that some things once lost, stay lost, and you go on anyway. When the great storm finally rises, Paul gives the word. The whole desert moves, worm after worm rises from the sand, each carrying ranks of Fremen. The storm hits the Emperor's defenses first. It tears down the shields the great army was hiding behind, and then, out of the blinding sand, the worms arrive. The dreaded Sardaukar meet the Fremen at last, and for the first time in living memory, the Emperor's unbeatable soldiers begin to lose. The Fremen fight like people who have already made peace with dying. The Sardaukar fight for an emperor far away. It isn't a fair match, and it doesn't last. Winning the battle was force. What Paul does next needs something else entirely. He walks into the captured palace to face the men who broke his world. Inside, the captured emperor waits, brittle and furious. Beside him stands the Baron, and a cold, gaunt woman in black, the Reverend Mother who once tested Paul. Paul faces the emperor as an equal, then as something more. He has the desert, he has the worms, and he has the one thing that can bring the whole empire down. He controls the spice now. The spice the whole galaxy depends on to travel between the stars, and he swears if pushed, he will destroy it forever. It's the perfect threat. Without spice, no ship moves, no empire holds. The most powerful people alive suddenly need this desert boy more than he needs them. The Baron tries one last move from the shadows, but Paul's little sister, born with the memory of 1,000 ancestors, is there, and she is not a child you cross. Baron, who murdered Paul's father, meets his end in that tent, undone at last. The room goes very quiet after that. Paul does not gloat. There's no joy in it, but the Emperor has one champion left. His nephew, Fade Rautha, steps forward and demands the old right, a blade duel one-on-one to settle everything. Paul accepts. He has seen this duel in his visions many times, many ways. In some of them he dies. He still steps onto the floor, blade in hand. The two young men circle each other on the polished floor. Fade is a trained killer, cruel and quick. Paul is something the galaxy has no name for yet. Fade hides a poisoned needle in his belt, a final trick. But Paul has seen it coming for years. There are no surprises left to use against him. The duel turns fast. Paul lets Fade believe he's winning the way you do when you've already seen the ending. And then in one clean motion, it is over. Killing the man who would have killed him was one kind of victory. What Paul feels standing over him is something colder. The visions were right. They are always right now. It's finished. The Emperor has no champion, no army, and no spice he can reach. He must give Paul everything. The throne, the empire, his own daughter's hand. The desert boy has become the most powerful person in the universe. Everything his enemies stole has come back to him 100-fold. He has won completely. And yet, watch Paul's face in the moment of total victory. There's no light in it. He's looking past the room, at the thing his visions warned him about all along. Because the Fremen around him are not finished. To them, this is only the beginning. Their Messiah has won, and now they will carry his name to the stars. This is the holy war Paul has dreaded since the very first vision. He stopped his enemies. He could not stop his own legend. It will spill out across the galaxy now. That's the quiet devastation under Dune's ending. Paul gets the throne and loses the future. He becomes a god to millions and a prisoner of what they need him to be. Chani sees it too. She knows that to seal his rule, Paul must marry the Emperor's daughter, a political marriage. She will never be his wife in the eyes of the court, but Paul's mother gives Chani the truth that matters. History will call the princess his wife. Chani will be the one he loves, and the loved one is the one remembered. It's a bittersweet comfort, the kind real life actually offers. Not everything fixed, just enough warmth to keep walking forward into a hard tomorrow. That's where Frank Herbert leaves Paul, at the summit of everything, having won it all, looking out at a future he can see and cannot change. It's a strange kind of triumph, isn't it? The story everyone remembers as the great desert adventure ends on a note of quiet warning. Be careful what you let people make you into. That's the whole arc, then. A boy tested in the dark on Caladan, a family destroyed, a desert that remade him, and a victory that cost more than the loss ever did. We'll leave the story there, where Herbert left it, and spend a little while with the man who dreamed all this sand and sorrow into being. But hold this last image a moment. Paul, who could see everything, would have traded all of it for one more ordinary evening on a rainy green world that no longer exists. There's something true in that for any of us. How often the thing we'd give anything to get back is just an ordinary day we didn't know to treasure. Paul never gets that day back. Neither do we most of the time. The book doesn't pretend otherwise. That's part of why it has lasted so long. So that's the desert and the boy and the terrible gift of seeing too far. Let the sand settle now. The hard part of the night is behind us. From here on, we'll just talk quietly about the man who wrote it and why this strange desert dream still matters all these years later. No more battles tonight.
If you drift off here, that's perfect. This is where the story rests, and we just talk softly for a while.
The man who dreamed all this was named Frank Herbert, an American writer, a journalist by trade, restless and endlessly curious about how the world fit together. Dune didn't begin with a vision of spaceships or empires. It began with sand, real sand on the coast of Oregon in the Pacific Northwest. In 1957, Herbert went to write a magazine article. The subject was strange and small. People were trying to stop moving sand dunes from swallowing towns. They planted grasses to anchor the dunes. Herbert flew over it all in a small plane and saw the sand move like a slow, living ocean. That image never left him. Sand as a force, sand as something alive that humans had to bargain with rather than simply conquer. The magazine article was never even published, but the seed was planted. Herbert kept asking himself a bigger question. What if a whole planet were like this? What would it do to the people who lived there? How would they think? What would they worship? What would they be willing to die for? Herbert was decades ahead of his time here. He was thinking about ecology, how every living thing depends on every other. Before most people used the word, he read everything. Desert cultures, religions, how power moves through societies, how myths take hold. He poured years of reading into one imagined world. The Fremen owe a great deal to the desert peoples of our own world, their water discipline, their toughness, their fierce independence, all drawn from real cultures Herbert studied. And the spice, the magic substance everyone fights over, was Herbert thinking about oil, about how whole civilizations can be built on one scarce, precious thing. He saw how a single resource could make some people rich and others desperate, how empires would lie and kill to control it. He just moved it to the stars. There was something else Herbert wanted to warn us about, something he came back to again and again, the danger of trusting a charismatic leader too completely. This is why Paul's victory feels so unsettling. Herbert designed it that way. He wanted you to cheer for Paul and then feel uneasy that you did. Heroes who can do no wrong, he believed, are the most dangerous figures of all, because people stop questioning them, and then terrible things get done in their name. So Dune is, underneath the adventure, a quiet argument. Don't hand your judgment to anyone, it says. Not even to the hero. Especially not to the hero. Herbert wove all of this in so gently that many readers miss it at first. They come for the worms and the battles. The warning settles in later, quietly. He also gave the book a famous little prayer, a thing the Bene Gesserit recite to master their own fear. Many readers have carried it out of the book and into real life. Fear is the mind killer, it begins. I will face my fear and let it pass through me. When it is gone, only I will remain, a small thing to hold on a hard night. Writing all this took Herbert years, 6 of them by most accounts. He researched and drafted and rewrote while supporting his family on a journalist's pay. The book first appeared in pieces, serialized in a science fiction magazine. Readers there began to sense that something unusually ambitious was unfolding, but turning it into a book was hard. The manuscript was long and strange and difficult to sell. By some counts, around 20 publishers turned it down. It was finally published as a novel in 1965 by a company better known for auto repair manuals than for grand visions of the future, an unlikely beginning. At first, it sold slowly, quietly. Then word spread the way it does for the books that truly last, one reader pressing it into the hands of the next. It went on to win the field's highest honors and to become, in time, the best-selling science fiction novel ever written, the slow book that quietly conquered. Herbert went on to write more books in this universe, sequels that followed Paul's story and his children's to strange and far-reaching ends across the centuries. But this first book remains the one the world loves most, the one that started in a small plane over the Oregon dunes, with a writer watching sand move like water. There's a lesson tucked into that history too, isn't there? The thing nobody wanted, the long, strange project that kept getting rejected, became one of the most beloved books in the world. Herbert trusted his strange, patient idea for years while the world said no, and the world came around. Sometimes the slow, stubborn thing is the thing that lasts. Underneath the spice and the worms, Herbert was really writing about us, about how we use the earth, about what we worship, about the stories we let rule us. He took the things he feared most about people, our hunger for resources, our love of saviors, and dressed them in sand and starlight so we'd actually listen. That's the gentle trick of great science fiction. It carries us far away to a desert planet so that it can quietly show us the ground beneath our own feet. And Herbert did it without ever lecturing. He gave us a boy, a desert, a worm, and a terrible choice, and let us feel our way to the meaning ourselves. That's the man, then. A curious journalist who flew over some sand dunes and turned them, over 6 patient years, into a whole universe we're still exploring. Before we drift towards sleep, let's sit a moment longer with why this desert dream still speaks to people who were born long after Herbert wrote it. We live now in a world thinking hard about its climate, about scarce resources, about how a changing planet reshapes the people who must live on it. Dune saw all of that coming. The Fremen dream of slowly turning their desert green, of patient work across generations to heal a damaged world. That dream feels very current tonight, and the warning about charismatic leaders has never gone out of date. Every generation seems to meet its own dangerous saviors. Herbert just gave us the language to notice them. That's the strange power of the book. It was written 60 years ago about a far future world, and somehow it keeps describing the one outside your window. But you don't have to read it for the warnings. Plenty of people simply love the worms, the desert, the impossible hero, the sheer scale of it all. That's enough. A book this large can be many things to many people. A thrilling adventure, a quiet warning, a meditation on ecology, a love story buried in the sand, all true at once. And that's part of why it has lasted. It rewards whatever you bring to it. Read it young, for the adventure. Read it older, for the sorrow. It meets you where you are. Tonight, maybe you don't need it to mean anything at all. Maybe it's just a desert and 2 moons and a boy learning to ride the sand. Maybe that's exactly enough. A whole world dreamed up by one patient man so that decades later you'd have somewhere soft and strange to rest your mind at the end of a long day. It's a generous thing when you think about it. Someone you'll never meet spent 6 years building a place where, all these years on, you can quietly let go. So as the desert cools and the night settles in, you can let the meanings go. They'll keep. The book will hold them for you until you want them again. For now, there's just the quiet. The dunes at rest, the 2 moons rising, the makers sleeping deep beneath the sand, dreaming whatever worms dream. We've come a long way tonight, from a rainy green world across the burning sand, all the way to a throne, and now to this gentle, starlit calm. From here, we'll just wind down softly. A few last quiet words, and then the desert will keep its watch while you rest. There's nothing left to do but settle. A book this beloved doesn't just sit on shelves, it seeps outward into other books, other films, into the very way we imagine worlds that aren't our own. Almost every grand science fiction saga that came after owes Dune something, the idea that a made-up world could feel as deep and real as history itself. Before Dune, many imagined futures were thin, just rockets and ray guns. Herbert showed that a future could have religion, politics, ecology, deep history, a whole civilization. Some of the most famous space adventures of the last 50 years borrowed from it freely. Desert worlds, mystical orders, chosen heroes, vast, scheming empires. The shape of Dune is everywhere. For a long time, people said Dune was impossible to film, too big, too strange, too interior, too much of it happening inside a single mind. Filmmakers tried for decades. Some attempts collapsed before a single frame was shot. Others reached the screen but couldn't hold the whole of it. The desert resisted them. And yet they kept trying, generation after generation, because the dream was too powerful to leave alone. That's a kind of legacy in itself, a story people can't stop reaching for. In recent years, new films finally brought the desert to the screen in a way that satisfied even longtime readers. A whole new audience met the worms for the first time. And many of those new viewers did what readers have always done. They went looking for the book. The desert sent them back to the page where it all began. That's the quiet miracle of a book that lasts. Films come and go, but the book waits patiently on the shelf, ready to give the whole desert to anyone who opens it. Beyond the films and the imitations, Dune shaped how scientists and dreamers talk about whole planets, about ecology on the grandest scale, about worlds as living systems. The word ecology was still new when Herbert used it as the secret engine of his story. He helped a whole generation of readers start thinking that way. Quietly, that mattered. Some readers say Dune changed how they see the real deserts of our own world, not as empty wastelands, but as living places, harsh and intricate and worth protecting. That's a remarkable thing for a story to do, to send you back into your own world, looking at it with kinder, more careful eyes. Few books manage it. This one did. And it did all this, remember, while also just being a thrilling story about a boy and a worm and a desert. It never stopped being fun. That's the rarest trick of all. So why does it still matter all these years on? Partly because the questions it asked never got answered. We're still arguing about every one of them. How do we share what little the earth gives us? How do we keep from handing our judgment to people who promise to save us? These aren't old questions. They're tonight's questions. But partly it matters for a softer reason, because some stories simply become places in the mind you can return to, and Arrakis became one of those places. For millions of people, the desert of Dune is as real a place as anywhere they've actually been. The two moons, the endless sand, the worms moving beneath, a whole country of the imagination. And that's a place worth having on a night like this. Somewhere vast and quiet and far from everything that asked too much of you today. Somewhere you already know the way to. You don't have to remember the names tomorrow. You don't have to hold on to the plot. The desert will still be there whenever you want to come back to it. That's the gift a lasting book gives you. It asks nothing back. It just keeps the door open, on every shelf, in every quiet room, for as long as you might need it. 60 years on, new readers still open it for the very first time every single day. The desert is just as vast for them as it was for the very first reader in 1965. And one day, maybe someone you love will open it because you mentioned it, and the desert will pass on again, the way it always has, one quiet recommendation at a time. That's how the truly great ones survive, not in vaults or museums, in the simple act of one tired person telling another, "You should read this, the way I'm telling you now." So now you know the desert too. Paul and Chani and Stilgar, the worms, the spice, the two moons. It's yours to keep or to pass along whenever you like. But none of that is needed tonight. Tonight it's enough to lie still and let the great desert hold the day for you while you finally rest. The day asked a lot of you, maybe more than it should have. Out here on the cooling sand, none of it can reach you. There's only the quiet and the stars. Let your breathing slow to match the desert. Slow as the wind smoothing the dunes. Slow as the makers turning far down in their endless dreaming sleep. We're nearly at the end now, just a little further into the quiet. Stay as long as you like. The desert keeps no clock, and neither do we tonight. Think of how far we traveled. A boy tested in a dark room, a green world left behind in the rain, a desert that took everything and gave back something stranger. All of it carried you here to this still and starlit place at the end of the night. That was the whole point of the journey, not the throne. This quiet, so let the story fade now. The way the desert fades into the dark at the edge of sight, you don't need to hold it. It will hold itself. There's nothing left for you to do. No test to pass, no worm to ride, no future to carry. Just the cool sand, the two moons, and your own slow breathing. The desert has seen 1,000 nights like this one. It will keep its long, patient watch over the dunes, the way it always has, while you let yourself drift. Somewhere out on the sand, a small desert mouse stirs and settles, the thing the Fremen named their hero for. Even it is resting now, curled safe against the cool of the night. Everything on Arrakis is quiet now. The sea etches sleep, the worms turn slow in the deep. The days-long story has finally come to its rest. And so can you. We'll stay with you a little longer into the last of the quiet, until you've drifted all the way down. There's no rush at all. We have all the night there is. Just the desert and the dark and the two pale moons. Just your breath, slowing. Just this soft, safe place at the far quiet end of a long, long day.
Rest here as long as you need. In a moment, we'll say goodnight. And then the desert will keep watch alone, and you can let everything go.
The night has gone soft and deep now. The desert is dark and still, and there is nowhere you need to be. Let your shoulders soften. Let the day's weight sink down into the cool sand and stay there. Breathe in, slow as the desert wind. Breathe out, slower still. There's nothing here but quiet. The two moons hang low and pale over the dunes. They will watch the sand all night so you don't have to. Far below the sand, the makers turn slow in their sleep. Even the worms are resting now, so can you. Out in the rock, the sea edge is dark and warm. The Fremen are sleeping. Their long day is over too. Chani sleeps. Stilgar sleeps. Even Paul, who sees so much, lets the visions go for one quiet night. The whole desert world has gone quiet at last, and you're quiet with it. Here in the soft dark, there is no test tonight, no trap, no worm, only the cool sand and the slow-turning stars. You did enough today. Whatever it was enough. Let that be true now, and rest. If your thoughts wander, that's all right. Let them drift over the dunes and float gently away. There is nothing to solve out here. The sand keeps no accounts. The night asks nothing of you at all. Just the warm dark and your slow breath, and the soft sand holding you the way the desert holds its own. You can feel yourself growing heavier now, sinking softly down the way the sun sinks into the dunes. That's it. Slow and easy, nothing pulling at you. Just the long, quiet desert and the patient stars. The desert is old and calm and unhurried. It has all the time in the world. Tonight, so do you. Let the last of the day dissolve into the sand. There is only this soft place now, and rest. A single amber light glows somewhere in the rock, warm and low, watching over the sleeping sea edge. That soft amber glow, a Fremen cloak lies folded on the stone, set down at the end of the day. Everything is put away now, everything is at rest. The work of the day is done for them and for you. The desert breathes slow around you, in and out. The dunes rise and fall like a sleeping thing. You are safe here, in this quiet country of the mind. Nothing can reach you on the cool night sand. If tonight helped even a little, subscribe. Next week, another book, another quiet place to land. But that's for another night. For now, there is nothing to do and nowhere to go. Only rest. Let the desert grow dim now. Let the moons soften. Let the last words drift away like sand on the wind. You don't need to listen anymore. You can let my voice fade into the desert and just breathe.
The book will still be here tomorrow. So will we. Sleep well.
Next time, something older. A different dark, waiting quietly.
Good night, Paul. Good night, Chani. Good night, Arrakis. Good night, wind-carved sand.
The desert keeps its watch, the two moons keep theirs, and you can let go now. Slow breath, soft sand. The long day is over and the night is yours to rest in. Drift now out over the quiet dunes into the warm and starlit dark. We'll keep watch. There's only the desert now, only the stillness, only the soft and endless quiet of the sand. Rest now. The desert holds you. The night is long and soft and entirely yours.
Good night.